Castling. Castling is the only time in the entire game of chess when a player is allowed to move 2 pieces on the same turn. Note that I said on the same turn. I did not say at the same time. The king must be moved first and then the rook. Castling is considered one of the 3 basic opening requirements, though it should be noted that more experienced players often reserve castling until such time as a threat is perceived to their king. The act of castling can have both a defensive aspect, that being one of king's safety, as well as a potential detrimental aspect, that being the fact that the king is better placed towards the center of the board in an endgame. Therefore, a good way to determine when to castle is to consider doing so more if the queens are still on the board, or to hold off from castling if they are not. With the queens gone, the likelihood of being checkmated in the center diminishes, and the greater the potential that the game will go into an endgame, and should it do so, the king would be better positioned in the center, specifically because he can reach either side easier from the center should your opponent try to promote a pawn. Castling is a king move, and as previously stated, the king must be touched first. If you touch the rook first, then you could be held to the touch move rule, and be forced to only move the rook regardless of your actual intent. If your opponent were to get a tournament director involved, and it was determined that you had touched the rook first, then that would be enforced. Because of this fact, you should get into the habit of always castling with the use of a single hand. Actually, you should never touch the chessboard with both hands at the same time. Always move first the king and then the rook. Castling can be done in either direction, both on the king's side, which is called castling short, or on the queen's side, called castling long. Regardless of which side you decide to castle on, you must move the king 2 squares, and then move the rook directly to the king's other side. Now, as if all of this were not enough to consider when castling, you must also be aware of when you cannot castle. You cannot castle if there are any pieces present between the king and the rook. You cannot castle if either the king or that side's rook have ever been moved. You cannot castle to get out of a check. You cannot castle into a check. You cannot castle through a check. Like all moves in the game, knowing when to castle is important, and knowing how to properly make the move mandatory.